When we picture really high-level security, we usually visualize like a massive steel vault. We're talking foot-thick titanium doors, retinal scanners, complex laser
Oh,
grids.
yeah, the whole movie setup.
Exactly. It just feels entirely impenetrable. The physical engineering provides this absolute measurable barrier.
Right, because you can calculate the exact amount of force required to breach it. It's completely quantifiable.
But then, you realize that the person holding the access codes to that vault is currently running on like 4 hours of sleep.
Yeah, if they're lucky.
Right. They're 5 minutes late for a critical board meeting. Their phone is just buzzing nonstop. And they just got this urgent, highly stressful text message from what looks exactly like their boss.
Oh, man. Demanding those codes right now to avert a crisis, I bet.
Yes. And suddenly, that titanium door doesn't matter at all. The entire multi-million-dollar system is really only as strong as that one person's immediate split-second reaction under extreme cognitive load. So welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are exploring some incredibly eye-opening insights from a cybersecurity consultancy called Mindshift. Specifically, we're looking at their entire philosophy for reducing what they call human cyber risk. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why traditional cybersecurity training is failing so spectacularly, and how organizations can actually build strong, confident cyber behaviors that are deliberate rather than just totally accidental.
Yeah, and if you are listening to this, whether you are prepping for a major IT strategy meeting, or maybe you're a leader trying to genuinely understand corporate risk, or honestly, maybe you are just insanely curious about why human beings always seem to be the weakest link in our digital security architecture. This deep dive is going to completely reframe how you think about workplace training.
Absolutely.
Because we are moving way past the standard IT manual here.
Okay, let's unpack this because right out of the gate, I had to ask a foundational question. When we think of cyber risk, we usually picture those firewalls, the encryption algorithms, malicious code raining down on a screen like in the Matrix.
Right, the classic green text.
Yeah. So why are we completely ignoring the technology side of things to focus entirely on human behaviors?
Well, what's fascinating here is that this approach fundamentally shifts the burden of responsibility. It argues that building safer cyber behavior isn't just an IT problem, it's a core organizational responsibility.
Wait, so it's not just the tech team's job?
Exactly. The premise is that all that expensive technology, the firewalls, the end-to-end encryption you mentioned, it only actually works if the people using it have the confidence and the clarity to use it correctly under real operational pressure. Because you can have the best digital vault in the world, but if your people are easily tricked into handing over the keys because they are overwhelmed or confused, the technology is essentially useless. The vulnerability isn't in the code, it's in the context of how people work.
Which means we really have to look at how organizations are currently trying to solve this problem.
Yeah.
Because they are trying, right?
Mm.
But the critique of the status quo in the source material is honestly brutal.
Oh, it really is.
The standard approach right now is that annual cybersecurity training module. We all know it intimately.
We do. And the psychological reality of that standard approach is exactly why it fails. Most organizations simply tick the box. They run a highly generic hour-long video module once a year. They force everyone to complete it by a certain deadline. And then leadership genuinely wonders why the actual day-to-day security behaviors of their staff don't improve. They literally just run the module and hope for the best.
And, hoping for the best is not exactly a rigorous security strategy when you're dealing with state-sponsored hackers or sophisticated ransomware syndicates.
Not at all. And the fundamental flaw here is cognitive. Expecting people to consistently act securely requires so much more than just throwing modules and corporate messaging at them.
Right.
It requires incredible clarity about priority behaviors. If leadership just treats this as a compliance exercise, and box to be ticked for the auditors so they can lower their insurance premiums, then any positive behavior change that actually happens out on the floor is entirely accidental.
It's like think of standard cyber training like buying a generic gym membership in January.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Right. You can tick the box that you have the membership, you paid the fee, you have the little scan card on your keychain. But if you have a bad lower back and your schedule only allows you to work out at 10 p.m., a generic poster on the wall telling you to lift heavy is actually dangerous.
Yeah, it's terrible advice for that specific person.
Exactly. Without a tailored routine that fits your daily schedule, your physical limitations, and your actual operational goals, you're just hoping for accidental fitness. You might wander in and use a treadmill once a month, but you aren't deliberately building strength.
That captures the disconnect perfectly. The compliance is there, but the operational integration into the reality of the person's life is completely missing.
And for you listening right now, just think about the last time you had to do one of those mandatory corporate training
Oh,
modules.
we've all been there.
Were you completely focused on it, taking copious notes? Or were you furiously clicking next while simultaneously answering 3 emails, eating lunch, and trying to mute yourself on a conference call?
Definitely the latter.
Right. That right there is exactly why the hope for the best model is fundamentally broken. It completely ignores the reality of cognitive load and multitasking in the modern workplace.
Precisely. Because generic hope-based training fails so predictably, we really have to look at the logical antidote. The only way out of the tick box trap is deep, fundamental customization.
Customization. Okay.
Yeah. If an organization realizes they can't just buy an off-the-shelf module, they have to figure out how to actually engineer that deliberate behavior change from the ground up.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting because I want to push back on that a little bit. I'm playing devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
Isn't a phishing email just a phishing email? Like, a scam is a scam. Why does the specific company culture or the specific industry matter so much when you're just trying to teach someone how to spot a fake link? A red flag is a red flag, right?
See, that is the exact assumption that makes traditional training fail. To answer that, we have to look at Mindshift's concept of priority behaviors for specific workforce groups.
Okay, how so?
Well, the daily operational pressure of a finance team rushing to process an end-of-month invoice is vastly, fundamentally different from a warehouse worker on the floor rapidly scanning logistics data on a handheld device.
Oh, so the context completely changes the nature of the vulnerability.
Exactly. A generic module tells both of them, don't click suspicious links. But the finance worker's entire job revolves around receiving unexpected invoices from new vendors, all of which contain links and attachments. That is their operational reality. The warehouse worker, on the other hand, is expecting inventory updates on a proprietary device. The mechanism of a potential breach is just completely different.
Right.
If we just give them a generic rule, we aren't helping them. We have to get under the skin of the organization to map out these specific friction points.
That makes a lot of sense.
Like, think about this. If the finance worker pauses a crucial multi-million-dollar payment at 4:55 p.m. on a Friday because an email header looks slightly anomalous, does leadership back them up for being secure?
Oh, wow.
Or do they punish them for missing a deadline and holding up the supply chain?
That is culture. And you cannot teach that in a generic off-the-shelf video. The pressure dictates the behavior, not the training module. If the unwritten rule of the company is never be late, then the employee will prioritize speed over security every single time, regardless of what the annual training said.
Yes. And that raises a massive, immediate, practical question for anyone trying to fix this. How does a large company actually execute this level of deep customization without getting completely bogged down?
Right, because saying we need to be customized is easy.
Much easier said than done.
Actually, mapping the psychology of an entire enterprise is another story. Identifying priority behaviors for thousands of different employees across dozens of departments sounds like an absolute logistical nightmare.
It really does.
So how do you operationalize this? The methodology here actually breaks this massive problem down into 4 distinct hurdles that a company has to overcome sequentially. Let's walk through how this architecture of change is actually built, starting with the first hurdle, the blank page problem. Where do you even begin?
You begin by establishing a foundation. This is where you bring key stakeholders together, and not just IT, but department heads, HR, operations, to define those specific priority behaviors we just talked about.
Okay.
You have to map the unique operational pressures of your specific workforce. And the golden rule here is that no templates are allowed.
Wait, really? Why are templates so toxic in this phase?
Because a template forces your company's unique culture into a pre-existing unnatural shape. It assumes your warehouse workers operate the exact same way as Amazon's warehouse workers, which they don't.
Oh, I see.
Establishing a custom baseline is about creating a structured starting point for leaders who are finally ready to take a deliberate, honest look at how their people actually work, rather than how the handbook says they work.
Okay, so you've mapped the behaviors, you know the friction points, so that's the custom blueprint. But then the second hurdle is execution fatigue. You have this great custom strategy, but if you go to your employees and say, hey everyone, please download these 3 new security apps and log into this new portal, I mean, you've already lost them.
Oh, immediately.
People are just exhausted by new software.
Which is why the next phase is all about momentum and translation. You take that high-level behavioral strategy and translate it into a structured awareness program that piggybacks on the tools and platforms the company already uses.
Ah, so you meet them where they are.
Exactly. If your company lives and breathes in Microsoft Teams or Slack, the security prompts and awareness campaigns need to live there too. If your warehouse workers only look at physical bulletin boards and daily stand-up meetings, that's where the program needs to be.
So it's the actual construction phase, but using the existing tools.
Right. You don't force the workforce to come to the security program. You build the security program into the specific workflows they are already using.
That drastically reduces the friction of adoption. But then we hit the third hurdle, which I think is probably the most insidious one, the natural decay of awareness.
The Ebbinghaus forgetting curve.
Yes, it's real. You can have a great launch week,
But human brains prune information they don't actively use. 6 months later, people slip right back into their old, fast, insecure habits.
And that is why sustained confidence requires sustained partnership. You cannot build a great program, cut the ribbon, and just walk away.
you need a maintenance contract.
Exactly. Preventing that decay of awareness requires ongoing strategic and operational expertise. It means continuously analyzing the data.
Yeah.
Like, are phishing click rates creeping back up in the finance department during Q3?
Right.
If so, you don't just yell at them. You investigate what new operational pressure was introduced in Q3 that is causing them to drop their guard, and you adjust the program to support them. It's a dynamic living system, not a static set of rules.
And then the final hurdle is the executive blind spot. Because no matter how well prepared the general workforce is, crises happen. Or, the board suddenly demands a comprehensive cyber risk audit, and the C-suite realizes they don't actually have the specialized vocabulary or strategic vision to answer those questions. Yeah, that's where you need on-demand, concierge-level, senior expertise. It's providing executive guidance and specialist support exactly when a company needs it without a cyber strategist on the payroll full-time.
It's essentially like a high-performance sports science program. The foundation phase isn't just handing out a playbook. It's doing a biomechanical assessment of the specific athletes on your team to see where their individual weaknesses are.
I love that analogy.
And then the momentum phase is designing customized drills using the equipment they already have on their home field rather than making them travel to a new facility.
Oh.
The partnership phase is having that coach on the sidelines all season, correcting their form as they get fatigued in the fourth quarter so they don't injure themselves.
Right.
And the concierge phase is having the world's best specialized orthopedic surgeon on speed dial just in case someone does tear an ACL.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, that sports science analogy highlights exactly how this sequential methodology solves the initial problem. By moving through these distinct phases, behavior change stops being that hope for the best gym membership. It becomes a measurable, coordinated, and highly specific operational muscle memory.
But theory is one thing. Building a customized sports science program for cyber risk sounds great on paper. But does this highly bespoke, culturally embedded approach actually survive contact with reality, especially when the stakes are incredibly high and the margin for error is zero?
Well, we can look directly at the environments where this philosophy is currently being applied to see if it holds up. We are talking about complex, highly regulated sectors: government, financial services, critical infrastructure, global corporate logistics.
Yeah, hitters.
Oh, absolutely. These are environments where a single compromised password doesn't just mean a bad PR day. It can mean a frozen supply chain, a compromised national secret, or a crippled power grid. The stakes are maximum, and the expectations for operational continuity are absolute.
Let's dissect how this actually plays out on the ground in those intense environments.
Yeah.
Take a highly regulated entity like a Ministry of Foreign Affairs, specifically the New Zealand Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Trade, mentioned in the source.
Right.
You have diplomats, international state secrets, and incredibly high-pressure communications. When you look at how they validate this methodology, one specific detail really stands out. The leadership specifically highlighted the value of honest critiquing. They wanted a partner who would come in and critique them when required. Why is the willingness to be critiqued so crucial when an organization is trying to manage human cyber risk?
This raises a really important question about organizational ego, which is often the biggest hidden vulnerability in any company.
Oh, I bet.
In critical infrastructure and government, Egos just have to be set aside entirely. If you are trying to build a genuinely customized program that maps real operational pressures, leadership absolutely must be willing to accept uncomfortable truths about their own culture.
Like what?
Well, let's say a consultant comes in, does the foundational mapping, and discovers that the C-suite executives are actively bypassing two-factor authentication because they feel they are too busy to wait for a text message.
Which happens all the time, the VIP exception.
Exactly. But that sets a terrible behavioral precedent for the entire staff. It tells the organization that security is for the little people, but speed is for the important people.
Wow, yeah.
Leadership has to be able to hear that critique, absorb the ego hit, and act on it. You cannot fix human risk if you aren't ruthlessly honest about human behavior, starting at the very top.
And we see the exact same necessity for deep cultural integration in completely different sectors. Take Mainfreight, a massive global logistics and freight company.
Right, totally different world.
We're talking thousands of employees moving physical goods across borders.
Yeah.
Their leadership focused entirely on the fact that this methodology connected across global teams and genuinely took the time to understand their distinct cultures.
Which goes right back to the warehouse worker versus the finance worker, but on a macro scale. In a global logistics firm, you can't impose a pristine Silicon Valley tech campus security mindset on a chaotic, high-volume shipping warehouse in another hemisphere.
No, of course not.
The language, the pacing, the technology they use, it's all different. Understanding the culture on the ground is literally the only way to make security relevant to the people actually driving the forklifts and scanning the freight.
And you see this validated again with NZ Post, who highlighted the friendly, professional, and innovative expert advice they received. The common thread in all these high-stakes environments, whether it's a massive national postal service or an international freight company, is that they aren't just buying a product. They are engaging in a strategic partnership to alter their operational DNA.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean? Let's bring this all together for you. We started by looking at the total failure of the tick box annual training module. The dangerous illusion that forcing employees to click through a generic video once a year somehow builds a secure firewall. We explored the compelling reality that because there is no such thing as an average organization, deep cultural customization is the only actual antidote to human error. We walked through the strategic hurdles of implementing this, from establishing a template-free baseline to integrating with existing workflows to combating the decay of awareness with ongoing partnership. And finally, we saw how setting aside organizational ego and embracing honest critique is really the only way this philosophy survives in the highest stakes environments on Earth. The absolute core takeaway here is that cybersecurity is not a software problem. It is an ongoing, human-centric organizational responsibility.
It's a complete paradigm shift from IT compliance to behavioral science. And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over, but I want to pivot away from the corporate world and look at your own personal digital life.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we've talked extensively about how organizations often just run a module, hope for the best, and end up with accidental, easily compromised behaviors. So take a hard look at your own day-to-day routines. Are your own daily security behaviors deliberately designed for your actual lifestyle? Think about how you personally manage your dozens of passwords. Think about how you verify an urgent, panic-inducing text message from a family member asking for money. Think about how you protect your primary bank accounts. Are those mechanisms deliberately structured to protect you when you are exhausted, stressed, and running late? Or are they just accidental habits, formed haphazardly the last time a random app flashed on your screen and forced you to just click accept all so you could get back to what you were doing?
Because at the end of the day, whether you are guarding a massive corporate database or just trying to protect your own personal identity, we're all standing in front of that same titanium vault door. The engineering might be perfect, but the technology only holds up if the person holding the keys has the deliberate muscle memory to know exactly what to do when the pressure is on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.